think I'm going to keep the intro much shorter. That's some of the feedback that I've been getting. So intro shorter. Welcome back. Welcome to the Nailing History podcast. I don't think we've still completely figured this out yet, but this is your host, Matt, and I'm here with the other host of the show, John.
Hey, guys. Welcome back for another week. Happy to have you here.
We're excited.
Stoked.
It's June. June has come, and you can just smell the summer in the air, can't you?
I can. It's really coming through. Went on a little walk earlier this morning. It's pretty full on out there.
It seems like you're having a pretty nice weather day down there, and the way that I can tell is I'm getting a very clear video picture on your end, which is probably the first time that I've really been able to see it clearly, and arguably clearer than me at home on my video. I mean, we are getting no loss of quality.
Yeah, we had a big.
I'm just curious. Like, anything happen, or what'd you do to fix this?
Got some big news to report to all our fans here. So, as some of you may know, I had some really bad internet problems. You know, almost you think working in dial-up
I think most
land.
of our fans are aware.
Most of them are aware. So I was putting it off. I needed to call Xfinity Comcast, our cable provider.
I mean, and let's just give a backstory.
Provider.
This isn't just because of the podcast. Like, I think for as long as I've known you living down there, it's been a bit of an issue.
It's been pretty bad, yeah. Like, it would just, you connect and then it kicks you off. And, a couple weeks ago, though, it really kind of hit the fan when I tried to do a podcast from the basement while my fiance was watching something on TV, streaming on TV, and it wasn't going anywhere. And so I don't know what it was, but something, I mean, I know you told me 20 times to go and call them, but that wasn't why I decided to call them last week. Something else happened.
Not. Heaven forbid you listen.
Something was going on, and I ended up looking, and it was really good. I looked because it turns out that my fiance, when she bought the house and signed up for internet initially, she got roped into one of these discount plans. So she signed up for like a 2-year deal, and like the first year of the deal was $35 a month.
Okay.
The second year of the deal is $64 a month, and then at the end of that second 12 months, it's a full price. And so I looked at the bill. I went onto the online account. It was going to be $105, and I'm like, there's no way I can't. Like, she can't watch TV and I can't podcast at the same time. There's no way we're going to pay $105. So we get on the horn, start talking to someone at Comcast. Next thing you know, I'm signing up for like 1,000 megabytes per second for $85 a month, and I'm like, I didn't want we need to just,
I want it cheap.
Need it cheaper. Like, we don't have 10 people on the internet. We have at most 2 or 3 devices connected at any given time. I was like, I don't need this. So we sign up for this, 1,000 megabytes per second thing. I'm all flustered.
So you got swindled into it?
Kind of swindled into it. I'm like, I just want to make sure. Like, do we need to update our router? Lauren, my fiance was getting frustrated too, because like we just want to make sure like our internet speeds, like it's fine. From what I can tell, like I've done tests on it before, and the speeds are fine. It's just we're not getting, that constant connection.
Yeah.
And so we get bumped up to 1,000 megabytes per second, and then so basically just do the hard reset right then and there. And I was just like, okay, I guess that's fine, and we'll just figure it out. And
the old reset.
Decided by the end of the summer, we'll end up going with a competitor.
Well, did you sign a contract for that $85 a month?
No, it's no contract.
I hope so.
No, it's no. Well, I can say that because I immediately changed it the next day. So
okay.
We went from 500 megabytes a month to 1,000 megabytes per month.
I think 500 is actually faster than what I have. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah, so I went there, and within less than 24 hours, in order to get back down to like a $64 a month thing, we had to kick it down to 150 megabytes per.
Honestly, that's still enough.
So we went from 500 to 1,000, back down to 150, and ever since we've done that switch, I did it on Saturday, it's been like no problem. So I think by them resetting something...
Yeah, they reset the signal or something?
They reset the whole thing. As soon as I changed it online, like our internet cut out, and then it had to go through its motions or whatever, it kicked back on, and we've had no problems since Saturday. And obviously, it's showing in the quality of the video.
Well, congratulations. You actually talked to Comcast. See, it wasn't that bad, was it?
Feel great. I could have done it all on the internet, it turns out. I just needed her login details to the account. And
I kind of told you that too, but whatever.
We got there in the end.
I'm happy for you. I'm happy for you. You look good.
Thank you.
Good seeing you. You're not all grainy. I don't have that yellow exclamation point in the top of your screen there. So it's been good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So anything else new? So June's here. Summer's coming up. Getting ready for all the summer festivities. We filmed. I hope everyone's going to be excited to hear that we filmed a special edition. As we do a lot of special editions, but this might be a multi-parter, I think. And we had some fun. We had a special guest in studio, and you guys will have to wait for that for the week of. We're probably going to let it loose the week of June 9th, sometime throughout that week. Keep an eye and ear out for that.
Okay. And I'll just give a heads up to our fans that I will be out of the country at the end of the month. So
I'm sure they're very concerned.
We got a couple. Get Matt solo, or you're going to get some episodes we got in the can.
You know what? I'm wondering. Maybe should I put that out as a poll? They want a solo episode, or do they want me to?
I still think most people just think you're the host of the show and I'm the guest. So
I'm trying my best.
It's fine. I think it won't. I think it will still be listened to by our fans.
Yeah, I don't know. We got stuff in the can. I'll just do that. But I was also, I don't know. Do you want to talk about what we were talking about today, or should we wait until the end of the episode, or you want to kind of get it out in the open right now about the little fun event, the fun exercise that we were talking about earlier today?
Yeah, we could do that. It's going into election season and people needing to kind of be tuned into their civic duties.
Yeah, so there's been a little bit of Mark C., who was in town a couple weeks ago, or a week ago, I guess at this point, we were talking about, so he was giving us some pretty good ideas, some things that we could do, and one thing that we landed on that we think could be pretty fun. I found the 100 questions that are chosen. So there's, I guess, in order to get your citizenship, you have to pass the naturalization test, and it is 10 questions. It's an oral test where a USCIS, which is U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services officer, will ask the applicant up to 10 of the 100 civics questions. There's a list of 100 civics questions, and the applicant must answer 6 out of 10 questions correctly in order to pass the civics portion of the naturalization test. Are you familiar with this, John?
I am familiar. Yes, I did not take the test myself, but I have taken a similar test in Australia before. And it's very similar. You need to know the background of the history and form of government, and so there's a couple. So anyway, things. So what we were thinking, I don't know how fun it would be for John to take it, because I think he would just be a little smug and just kind of say, I know everything. So what I thought might be fun is I pulled it from a website. There's all 100 questions, and I was going to go through and answer all of them to the best of my ability, and see how well I would do. I looked at the one you found. Did you not find the one with the answers, or did you just? I
did find the one with the answers, but obviously I don't want to use that.
Well, I'll use it because I know. I think I would know a fair bit of these.
Oh my! Well, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it on my own in my own time, and then I'm going to send my answers to John, and he's going to, hopefully, if he finds the time in his busy schedule, grade my answers, and then we'll review the results on the podcast. I think that would be fun, because I'll be honest, some of those questions looked a little tricky to me.
Are you just going to answer like 10 of them, or you're going to answer all 100?
I'm going to answer all 100.
And I'm just going to give people the breakdown, the rundown on. Okay.
It looked like, yeah. And so I'm thinking after this episode airs, I'm going to put a poll out on X, formerly Twitter, on our account. I'm going to see what the fans think. If I would get 0 to 25 answers right, 25 to 50 answers right, 50 to 75 answers right, or 70 to 100 questions right. And then see where we're at and see what my reputation is to the fans out there.
Should we give them a quick teaser question and answer?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't want to do that.
How are they going to know you didn't cheat?
Honor code. They'll know. I think they'll know based on my answers. I'm pretty sure they'll know.
Okay.
It's split up into sections. I guess I'll at least let the fans know this much. It looks like it's like, so there's 57 questions on American government, and then I guess the rest are on. Then there's 30 questions on American history, and then there's 20 questions on integrated civics. The sections on American government are principles of American democracy, system of government. That's going to be a tricky one. Rights and responsibilities. So that's the government, the American history, colonial period, and independence. I mean, I'm going to knock that out of the park. That is 12 questions. 1800s. That might be a little tricky.
Pre-1820, you'll be fine, but after 1820, I think you're screwed.
It might be, yeah, probably. Recent American history and other important historical information. And then for integrated civics, you got geography. Geography is not my strong suit. Symbols and holidays. I know my holidays, so we'll see. So that's how it's split up, fans. And I'll put the poll out there, and I'd like to hear back from you guys and see how well you think I would do on that.
I sure they wait with bated breath.
So then I guess what would happen if I get, so you need to get 60%, 6 out of the 10 questions that they ask. What would happen?
You need to get 8, dude. I need you to get 80%.
80?
Yeah. Well, that's going to be a whole episode. If we're grading a whole episode and we're just going through questions. Yeah. All right. Stay tuned then.
It'll be fun. I mean, I think that'll be a fun time. And it will bring up some good questions. And I have some, I think it'll be good. I'm excited. Fans, I hope you're excited too. Oh, there is one other thing that I do want to mention. Fans, you might have realized when you're looking at the descriptions, you might have noticed recently, John, I don't know if you've noticed, but in the descriptions of our videos, there's a link on there that says, send us a text message. And, we welcome all the fans. When you click on that, and you're on your phone, it'll open up a text. And it's a message you open up your messages and you can shoot us a text, and we get all the texts, and we'll be happy to read any of your comments on air that you may send. It might be just another way to get a hold of us. We're trying to be as reachable as possible to the fans out there. So you got X, you got our email, nailinghistorypod@gmail.com, and now you got another way, text messages.
So without further ado. Not much further ado. This week in history.
Soon to be next week in history. History! This week in history! This week in history! This week in history.
It is a little long. Cut it.
This week in history.
Sorry, fans. We can only cut one thing down at a time. We started with the intro. Maybe next week we'll cut back on the.
What intro?
Didn't you say
our intro?
You
We're 30 minutes in.
No, you shortened the intro music.
Oh yeah.
No, we'll eventually get on the same page with
my plans are to rework that whole song and do a little bit of a better job, like up the production value a little bit. I'll shorten it and I'll change it to next week in history.
Bring in a piano. Just a whole
I don't know how to play the piano.
An orchestra.
So yeah, John, do you want me to go first? Because mine's pretty short and sweet, and I can get it in and over with.
Sure, go for it.
Hope it's not the same one as yours, but I don't think it is.
Yeah, mine won't be super long either. This is going to be we're going to be in and out here.
Yeah, so fans, sit tight. Hope you're prepared for some banger facts here for you. So I got June. So we're dealing with the week between June 9th and June 15th. I have June 13th, 1920. The U.S. Postal Service officially bans shipping children as animals via the U.S. Postal Service in the mail.
Well, that's finally a good time to get around to it.
So it was 1920. So the background, January 1st, 1913 was the first time that was when the U.S. Postal Service officially began accepting packages over 4 pounds. So before that, obviously, mostly letters, I guess other small goods here and there, probably mostly things that would fit in an envelope. But in January 1st, 1913, it expanded its
or whatever.
Yeah.
And
then like literally pretty much as soon as that happened in January of 1913. So like immediately after that, people started, and like I could kind of see that. It's like, oh, we can send anything in the mail. How about what if I sent this? So they're trying to like push the limits as human nature kind of is. So right at first they started sending eggs, bricks, snacks, not snacks. Sorry, I misread that. Snacks too, I guess. I don't know. The snacks were a thing in the 20s. And other unusual packages. So then, like pretty shortly after that, it's documented that a couple from Ohio paid 15 cents in postage and an unknown sum to insure their infant son for $50 to mail to send their child via mailman to his grandmother's house
in Ohio.
So that was that's the first documented case of this happening. And I read a newspaper article. It was kind of like one of the feel-good stories that you would read about, like, oh, and in this news, somebody thought it'd be a good idea to mail their kid, blah, blah, blah.
Guess more cost-effective, if they didn't have a car.
Yeah,
it was a cost-effective measure, yeah.
So, and I will say, I think, like, in general, back then, everyone kind of knew everybody, so it wasn't really, like, giving your kid to a stranger in that sense, it was like they kind of knew the mailman, kind of. Yeah. Maybe a little bit of a stretch, like, but that's milkman. Kind of a point. Yeah,
might have been your milkman too.
Could have been. So then between the years of 1913 and 1915, there are 7 documented instances of people mailing the children. As John said, it was cheaper to buy stamps to send children by railway mail than to buy a ticket to a passenger train. So another example, February 1914, a 6-year-old daughter was sent by her parents to her grandmother's house 73 miles away. The Idaho family paid 53 cents for the stamps, put them on her coat, and just sent her on her way. And at that point, the postmaster general kind of said, like, we got to stop doing this. This was 1914, but didn't work. That, like, they said it, but the postman, the mailman still, I guess, were like, well, a package is a package. So then the most egregious example of that, a year later in 1915, a woman mailed, again, a 6-year-old daughter from Florida to Virginia, which is 720 miles. That's the longest trip of any child identified. The cost was 15 cents. So the woman, she was mailing her daughter to her father in Virginia, and I don't know how many days that would take. But that was the most egregious. And the last one was 40 miles through Kentucky. Another one was 40 miles. And then finally on June 13th, 1920, the Assistant Postmaster General, John C. Coons, finally declared that children could not be classified as harmless live animals and could not be mailed via post office.
I think it's amazing that animals, even up until then, were allowed to be posted.
I think they still are, no?
A live animal? I don't think you could send a live animal in the mail.
You don't think? Like a snake?
No. You have to be boxed. It has to be boxed up. I don't think so. Yeah. I mean,
my thought is like, dude, that 720-mile ride on the train, like, where did they put the kid? I mean, I guess they probably just took the kid and like brought it into like the engine, I guess, or did they just like put the kid in like the like train car with all the other mail and was like, all right, see you in 3 days. I mean, how long of a ride do you think that is?
Depending on rail at that time, I don't know, a couple weeks maybe, at least a week, I would think. But they're not boxed up, right? I mean, they just have like postage on their like jacket.
Yeah, just postage on their jacket. Yeah,
and they're just sitting in the back of the train and just with all the other
the other mail. That's what I'm saying. Or I mean, if you were the mailman, if you were the train, what do you call it? Train conductor, I guess. Yeah. You would kind of be like, all right, I'll take the kid
just
up
sit
front
up here.
With me.
I mean, yeah, come up here.
So I thought that was pretty interesting. June 13th, 1920, the last. So the last time it happened was, I'm not sure what the date was. It might have been around then, and then it was finally put to an end.
Why was it just children? Were adults shipped? Senior citizens?
So there was a limit, which
weight limit.
There was a weight limit, and from what I could understand, the weight limit was 10 pounds, and the measurement limit was 72 inches. So okay. I think it's 72 inches, like around, like perimeter, okay. I guess. Mm-hmm. And 10 pounds, saying it out loud. I mean, I don't know. I guess like, do 6-year-olds weigh like 10 pounds? I mean, when you're born, you're like 6.
That would be no. I think they weigh a lot more than that. I would think.
What's the average weight of a 6-year-old? There's two guys who don't have any kids talking.
By the way, I think you can mail some animals through the mail. Live day-old poultry. The following live day-old animals are acceptable for mailing when properly packaged: chickens, ducks, emus, geese, guinea birds, partridges, pheasants, only during April through August, quail, and turkeys. All other types of live day-old poultry are non-mailable. Day-old poultry vaccinated with Newcastle disease are also non-mailable. What?
Day-old meaning they were born a day ago?
Like that day. Day-old animals. Like that day. Born that day. Boxes to be properly ventilated. Date and hour of hatching is noted on the box. Poultry is not more than 24 hours old and is presented for mailing in the original unopened hatchery box from the hatchery of origin.
Is this the USPS?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Code 526.3. There you go. Interesting. I didn't know.
I wonder if that's the case. I wonder if you could mail a day-old baby.
Well, if they outlawed the practice of mailing any human in the mail in 1920, I would think a day or not.
I guess that's why they had to specify. I guess that's what they're saying. They couldn't be classified as harmless animals.
I don't even think in 1913 you would have been a Senate bill because the baby needs to be looked after. I mean, unless the conductor is a
day-old baby.
Presenting a day-old baby, unless the conductor is a wet nurse. I think the baby would need a bit of help.
Could you imagine if it would have just gotten out of control and everybody was shipping babies all over the country? Like that was just a thing, and then it just stuck, and that was like, even like when we're older, like we get like you go on summer vacation, you come back like, oh hey, how was your summer? Oh well, it was great. My mom mailed me to Florida to see my grandfather.
I got this postcard. I'm sending this postcard from Florida. Be a good way to get rid of your problems. You just put like a fake return address on it if you're trying to like get rid of the kid. Oh, we're gonna send you off here. Bye, like Joe Dirt, a la Joe Dirt.
That would be a good. That's a good premise to a movie. My parents mailed me away.
Starring Brendan Fraser.
Interesting casting.
90s Brendan Fraser.
90s Fraser. Okay, Fraser. Encino Man, right? Yeah. Well, anyway, a little fun tidbit. Don't know.
That's cool. Well, mine's all right. Yeah. Is there anything else on that? That's cool stuff.
Pretty much it. I just yeah.
Keeping it a little more lighthearted too. That's good.
I don't understand the post office. The post office is in the Constitution, right?
The whole question was did Congress have the ability to make post offices? They have the ability to fund, or no, they have the ability to make post offices, but not the ability to fund the roads to and from the post offices. There was a whole debate about it, in the early 1800s.
It says, as set forth in the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 7, the post office has been an essential part of the fabric of the nation throughout our history.
Oh, yeah, no. To establish post offices and post roads. What is a post road? A road designated for the transportation of postal mail. I
always thought they were kind of privately run, though. Isn't there some kind of weird caveat from that? Am I wrong there?
I'm not totally certain, but I think there was a time when people were it was a little more competitive. It wasn't as full a monopoly as it is now and has been for a number of years. Especially, I would think more in the outback, in the frontier and stuff. I mean, just the longer distances to cover. I'm sure they probably had a subcontract out to some local carriers who could.
Well, then what was the Pony Express?
I don't know. Thomas Jefferson feared that the Postal Service would become a source of patronage and a waste of money. He also expressed
that dude
doubt
did not like to spend money, did he?
At granting Congress the power to designate post roads, as he considered road building to be a state responsibility. Yeah, that was it. They were it was deemed a federally funded internal improvement if you were to build roads across state lines and stuff. It was the states needed to fund the roads themselves.
So the Pony Express, maybe the Pony Express is kind of is private. It's an express mail service that used relays of horse-mounted riders between Missouri and California. And they started it kind of because of the gold rush, and there was more of a demand for it.
Interesting. Yeah, I just think they wouldn't be able to handle the load at that time.
So that's it's a private thing, I guess.
Yeah,
makes sense.
And here's what I was saying about earlier. So, an early controversy in the early 19th century, when Thomas Jefferson stuff was writing, an early controversy was whether Congress had the power to actually build post roads and post offices, or merely designate which lands and roads were to be used for this purpose, and to what extent that power could be delegated to the Postmaster General. So they could just say, well, we want a road here. We'd like to have a post office here and a road here connecting all this stuff, but we don't have any delegated authority to actually tax and then create those things. The states have to do it. There you go.
And I mean, I guess that would have been more of a concern when nobody used road,
Yeah.
I mean, roads are obviously, way more.
I mean, they're way more used now. I mean, now, yeah, the federal improvement argument was just getting goods to market, establishing, commerce and getting all that stuff, which is all good things. But yeah, people like Jefferson just wanted to do it by the book. It's well, we don't have the authority. Let's make an amendment to say that we do have the authority and go from there. But yeah.
So you're saying the post office is unconstitutional, John?
No, that's not what it says at all.
I know, I'm kidding. That's all I got.
That's all you got? All right. Well, that's a little lighthearted, and that's good. Mine's a little.
Is yours not lighthearted?
I mean, no, it's pretty lighthearted. I guess I just didn't know.
I don't know if you want to say that.
Well, I'll start with it's not Eichmann trial. No, I just thought this was interesting because I was I guess if I put two and two together, maybe I could have gotten to this conclusion, but I just didn't know. We weren't told about this in school. So on June 8th, 1949, 75 years ago, Helen Keller was
75 years ago. Okay.
Yeah, Helen Keller was named in an FBI report as a Communist Party member.
Oh, I saw that. There was she included with a couple celebrities, right?
Dorothy Parker, Danny Kaye, Frederick March, John Garfield, Paul Mooney. I mean, famous people that
Paul Mooney?
And you and I and Edward Robinson. I mean, yeah, actors, people in the spotlight. I didn't know. I mean, I did a little. So from that, I
know less than nothing about Helen Keller, except she was the one who was deaf and blind.
Yeah, that's right. And there was a book, like a story of her life, The Miracle Worker. I think it was like it was a play and turned into a movie. And
but what's her whole thing?
That like her teacher, she came down with like a fever when she was a baby. She was born into like a family in Alabama. Her father was in the Confederate Army. They were like well-to-do before the war.
Yeah, like she was rich, right?
Like well-to-do background in the South, in Alabama. And she came down with a fever, and when the fever broke, she was deaf and blind, and they didn't know what to do. And she kind of just stumbled around, more or less. And eventually, they got Anne Sullivan to come down and help her, who herself was at least partially blind. I didn't really go into like much of her disabilities at all in my studies, in my research here. But yeah, Anne Sullivan basically helped her out. And you
didn't read a book on that?
I think I did have to read the Helen Keller. I had to read The Miracle Worker, I think, in school. At Basil, okay. I think we read that.
It's just you always say, I read a book on.
Didn't read a book on this one, no. But yeah, Helen Keller, Anne Sullivan, her teacher is like getting super frustrated, like not getting anywhere. They're not, she's super frustrated. So what she's trying to do is she's basically trying to teach her to like palm. So like, I think the big thing in that movie is that Anne Sullivan puts water on her hands and then like signs like this is what water is. She would like write out water, like puts water on her hands, like this is water. And then eventually it got through, and so they're over by like a pump and spigot, and like eventually that's the breakthrough, and then she gives her a big hug, and that's the end of the movie. Like that's where I thought it ended, and then she would proceed the rest of her life as like an advocate for people with disabilities, and
so that's what it is. She was an advocate.
Yeah, like it became like okay. I was like okay, yeah. She had this thing as a kid, and then she spent the rest of her life dedicated to
So she was able to live a relatively normal life, or be able to communicate well.
Yeah. And she went of how she was able to get past those disabilities and conquer them in a way. And yeah, so basically she went on a speaking circuit. Like this is the kind of stuff I think I knew about. She went on like a speaking circuits and like did a lot for people that were the blind and the deaf and the
I get it.
The rest of her life,
a proponent of the blind and or deaf community.
Yeah, and I thought
because there probably was zero then.
Exactly, and I thought it started and ended there, and I guess I thought it came purely from just like that was her and she went through it herself. But I didn't realize how radical she was. She was like a full on. Well, she was like apparently in research, even in the early 20th century, she was basically a known socialist and a heavy promoter of leftist causes for some time. She joined the Socialist Party in 1909, but she said they were too slow. So she ended up joining the Industrial Workers of the World, a radical international labor union in 1916. Called, I think the nickname the Wobbles, the Wobbles or something. Yeah, super like left-wing labor union kind of deal. And so she was already on the radar of like being okay. So she was like really into like leftist. But
she
causes.
Probably was into that because of her whole thing is getting.
Well, yeah, I guess they had context through times like at the time like deaf and blind, but like that wasn't a thing that even like maybe you had to be more left leaning to even break through.
I mean, you got to think about it. Like back then there were no programs to support people with any disabilities, let alone if you were like deaf and blind, you would have no chance.
Yeah, but why she got so radicalized is that people were saying, oh, well, she's not just because she herself was deaf and blind and because she was born with the illness. She's like, well, so many of these she would make the case, and because she was a socialist and joined this, International Workers Labor Union, she'd say that so many of these afflictions are because of the state of the factories and the working class and the working. Like, she would tie all of these issues of blindness and deafness and all these ailments to the state of your common worker in the industrial machine. I get
that. I
didn't realize. I just thought like, okay, there was like people with kids with like polio or, kids were born blind. They just didn't have the support. And she just dedicated her life to just helping them.
Yeah.
Maybe more from like a Christian standpoint.
So she got into like disability in general.
Yeah, I guess I had a more of like she was kind of I knew she wasn't a nun, but I thought like, okay, she went through this, had her own life experience, and then just dedicated her life to that cause, but wasn't a Christian about it. She just like, that was just her thing. I didn't realize she was like as radical as she was. And the part of her just being
Do you have any examples of her being a radical or?
Well, yeah. So kind of getting to the point of why she was named in this report in 1949. I found there was a whole FBI report written basically, and I just Googled it and just started reading up. And so apparently she was never officially under investigation by the FBI, but by the time she was named in 1948, 49. We're kind of really getting into the early stages of McCarthyism and the beginnings of the Cold War, and kind of there was a new organization formed in the House of Representatives called the House Special Committee on Un-American Activities that were basically responsible for finding, communists and anarchists that were operating in the, certain higher echelons of society and influence. And so, I found some things that, basically what kind of called her out to people. J. Edgar Hoover, particularly. Apparently, this report ended up on J. Edgar Hoover's desk. He was the leader of the FBI for a number of years. Apparently, according to an article in an April 1938 issue of the Daily Worker, an East Coast communist newspaper, she is said to have signed a petition put forward by the American Friends of Spanish Democracy calling for an end to the arms embargo on the Republican Spanish government during the Spanish Civil War, which went from 1936 to 1939. The U.S. had been officially neutral up to that point, and since the start of the conflict. A number of years later, in March 1944, a report was put forward by the House Special Committee on Un-American Activities, calling the American Friends of Spanish Democracy a communist front. Quote, in 1937-38, the Communist Party threw itself wholeheartedly into the campaign for the support of the Spanish loyalist cause, recruiting men and organizing multifarious so-called relief organizations, air quotes, such as American Friends of Spanish Democracy. So,
isn't that what Oppenheimer was involved with? Gotta be.
Yeah, that kind of story. Exactly. That kind of.
I think that whole thing at his college was specifically that group, I think, wasn't it? I know somebody who read the super long book on Oppenheimer that hopefully they'll chime in, or I'll.
That was during the 30s, and during the Spanish War, during the Civil War, it's very similar. Like I said, I don't think she was never an official card-carrying Communist Party member,
but effectively
she was deemed a communist but a sympathizer at the bare minimum. And so, in a later issue, another issue of the Daily Worker in February 1939 reported that Keller would speak at a Friends of the Abraham Lincoln Brigade.
Oh, I guess she could speak. Whoops.
Meeting as a show of support for American volunteers fighting on behalf of the Spanish loyalist cause.
I'm sorry, I spoke over you there. What did she do?
The Daily Worker reported in a later issue, February 1939, that Keller would speak at a Friends of the Abraham Lincoln Brigade meeting as a show of support for American volunteers fighting on behalf of the Spanish loyalist cause, which were the Republicans, and they were also backed by the Soviet Union. Just real quick, Spanish Civil War was fought by the Republican government, and then you had a nationalist government, the militaristic government, which would eventually win. They had Francisco Franco. The Nazis and Italians backed the militant nationalists. The Soviet Union and a lot of leftist, socialist and communist groups backed the Republicans. The United States was neutral. Didn't have a dog in the fight.
Those were the days.
Good old days. Partly the reason why, actually, it's why Italy wasn't ready to go too when they signed that agreement. They'd spent too much of it during that Civil War.
The wee agreement, as we call it.
The wee agreement. Yeah, they got kind of taken out.
That would be funny if that's what that was called. But anyway.
And another one, so this report was like, it was like a 50-page report.
That's pretty interesting. You read the whole report?
No. I just found like the interesting parts, like that she was basically being called out. And it was also said that apparently she sent a congratulatory telegram to a dinner held on February 22nd, 1943 at the Hotel Commodore in New York City, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Red Army. And
whoops.
Last one, I thought this one was kind of like the funniest. And it's like, oh, wow, like I had no idea about this lady. According to another New York newspaper, the Morning Freiheit, which I guess is German. Maybe it's like, I don't know why. In November 10th, 1945 issue, Keller was apparently a guest at a reception at the Soviet consulate in New York. The event was commemorating the 28th anniversary of the Russian Revolution. When she entered the consulate, she reportedly said, quote, "Finally, I am on Soviet soil."
Oh, boy. This sounds...
However, she would have said
made
that.
up, dude.
Yeah, exactly. So this was a report. I mean, this was like an FBI. This is like just the file they had on her. But
I wonder why, like,
eventually named in a report as a communist. But...
Pretty crazy. A crazy time. Imagine just like minor, like if you like, I feel it had to have been some people who like had nothing to do with communism and just.
Well, she was a full-on leftist. I mean, clear. And
well, she sounds like she was definitely towing the line. It sounds like, but there might have been some people who just were like added to it.
Well, there were some people. I mean, I guess to be fair, some would always say, obviously, the most diehard communists would always distance themselves from someone like Stalin. They were like, well, Stalin's abusing the ideology of communism. We're not like that. No, that's not how communism is really supposed to work.
Right.
There's no proof in human history of how it actually is supposed to work.
Well, we won't get into that.
Anyway, but I just thought it was interesting. I just thought it was, I just found it intriguing that that's not the story of Helen Keller that I was ever told in school. I just thought she was the lady who overcame a great hurdle, which she did. And I do think she probably did a lot of good work for the blind and deaf and others with disability, but I had no idea she was like so full on into like leftist causes. And
did she get married?
Did she? Who was Helen Keller?
What did she look like?
When she was 36, she fell deeply in love with a man called Peter Fagan, an ex-newspaper reporter who was working as her secretary, and they were secretly engaged. They even managed to get a marriage license before Helen's family caught on and forbid them from going any further because of her disabilities. Interesting.
She always looks old in all of her pictures.
Yeah, she was a founding member of the American Civil Liberties Union, which, I mean, they're a big deal. They were proponents of a lot of leftist causes, but I think there's been an issue or two they've even sided with libertarians on some things. Not very often, but a couple things.
You ever see the A Quiet Place, that movie?
No.
Oh, well, the lead, the girl who plays the daughter in that movie is going to be playing Helen Keller. She's deaf, I guess.
Oh, okay. I wonder if they're
she's going to play Helen and Teacher, it's called.
I wonder if they're going to get into her support of eugenics at all. So apparently that was a thing too, that a lot of people who supported these causes, she was of the class, it was the early 20th century, but she supported eugenics. Basically,
what's that?
She was in favor of refusing life-saving medical procedures to infants with severe mental impairments or physical deformities, saying that their lives were not worthwhile and they would likely become criminals. She was also
so she was a proponent of that?
A lot of progressives were. They're better breeding and eugenics. It didn't start in Nazi Germany. That's another.
I mean, well, okay, but I get that. But like, you would think. So, I guess she wasn't born that way. But you would think she's kind of saying like, well, if any baby's going to wind up like me, they should be killed.
Yeah, like the life I live, why would anyone want to live that? But she's kind of playing God in that way. I mean, as people that support eugenics want to do, but she was also concerned about human overpopulation. Yeah, overpopulation. Supporter of birth control at a time when birth control was used to promote eugenics and push forward we don't want certain people breeding kind of thing. That was kind of definitely a progressive thing. But so
she was not 100% chill. It sounds like
she wasn't chill in terms of like she just overcame a disability.
She was like 80% chill.
Others, I guess. Yeah, I'd give her a clean 55%. I mean, if
55
with some of these causes, dude, I mean, look, communism has killed way more people. I can't get on with someone who's granted. She was living.
She might not have been communist.
She was super. I don't, whatever. Maybe she really officially wasn't, but
I don't think she said that about being on Soviet land. I don't think so.
Okay, that could have been nonsense. Okay,
that doesn't sound like her.
It doesn't sound like. What do you think she sounds like, Matt? Good. So they were asking.
I find that interesting. I still think So you give her a 55% chill score?
The question is, where does that come from? She came from a well-to-do background, let's call it a conservative Southern background, right? Well-to-do. Some people say that Anne Sullivan actually was to blame for a lot of this kind of radicalizing that she took on. Apparently, Anne Sullivan was born to impoverished working-class Irish parents who immigrated to America to escape the Great Famine.
Yeah, I got it. Okay.
Her mom died of tuberculosis. Her father abandoned the family. Her brother Jimmy, she and her brother Jimmy were sent away.
Jimmy Sullivan?
To a hospital.
I know a Jimmy Sullivan.
So, but actually, in doing my studies, I was like, I had no idea she was a socialist. There was actually a YouTube video I watched on it. And this YouTube commenter made a really interesting point. And as to why. So the top comment was, someone said, quote, "The reason the story stops when she learns to talk is because no one wanted to hear her thoughts." End quote.
Wow. That's tough, dude.
That is tough. I didn't know. I mean, I just,
I'm
this
curious.
Is one of those things, if you're like someone who's like into it and knows like if you know like your left history, I'm sure there's like, it's like obvious that Helen Keller was like really into this, that she's like one of the founding mothers of left movements or whatever. I just had no idea. I mean, I just definitely a blind spot in any of my knowledge of early progressive era. I had no idea that she was such a major proponent in that time period. On this day.
I'd be curious what a biopic would be interesting to dive into that, kind of like how they did it with Oppenheimer. I thought that was cool.
But I feel like with Oppenheimer, I mean, granted, I'm basing it on the movie. Oppenheimer was like, maybe I had that, but like at the end of the day, I'm going to build the bomb because that's a duty. I mean, maybe I think Helen Keller, after she, was able to conquer a lot of that stuff, just kind of leaned in hard to the progressive era.
Well, Oppenheimer kind of just, I'll get some more information from my, from the expert that I know of, see if I can fill you in on any of that.
I look forward to that.
Cool. Yeah, that's it's pretty interesting. Yeah, I don't know anything about Helen Keller.
Yeah, and I guess
nothing. Zero.
I didn't much either, so that's why I didn't know any of that stuff. Just what we learned in school.
I wonder.
So June 8th, 1949, she was put forward in an FBI report as a member of the Communist Party.
And whatever came of it, anything?
No, she didn't end up in prison or anything. I don't think actually it really went anywhere from what I could tell. I mean, a lot of people were named. Some people, some more than others, were actually, really put through the ringer. From 1946 to 1957, Keller visited 35 countries. In 1948, she went to New Zealand and visited deaf schools in Christchurch and Auckland. No, didn't say she went to. Doesn't say anything else.
She has a nice signature. I gotta see this. How is that possible? This can't be what you're talking about. Like printed?
Yeah. I think for someone who's for her in her condition, it's very legible. I mean, as far as someone, I mean, look, and not to denigrate the ability to overcome those two things at a time when, I think for most of human history, you'd have been literally left for dead. And, with the help of others, her own persistence, she came through and fought a lot. But probably wouldn't get on like a house on fire with her political ideas. I probably wouldn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but that's okay.
So what did we talk about? So we talked about the Postal Service not letting you mail children anymore. Helen Keller, and on June 8th, 1949, she was placed on a list for on the watch list as a communist. Is that what it was?
Just named as a Communist Party member.
Potential, or
like she was named in the report.
And well, I guess that's it. Anything else you want to add, John, or anything you got looking forward to this week, or anything, or?
I've got on Thursday a big date. I think I mentioned on last week's show.
Yeah, so the day that this airs.
I'll be in Philadelphia, wrapping up a 5-year process of
hopefully wrapping it up.
Fingers crossed. Going for my Italian citizenship by descent through my great grandfather. And maybe we'll get into it later episode. All the struggle of the early Italian. Now, maybe their children will become Italian Americans, but the early Italian immigrants and all the stuff they had to go through.
Sure. Well, good luck with that. I hope everything goes well.
Yeah, thank you.
You have to give us an update next week.
I will. Fortunately, there won't be a citizenship test, and it won't be in Italian.
You lucked out on that one.
Big time.
Well, fans, we enjoy you sticking with us, and we'll get we'll keep, like I said, keep an ear out for our special edition.
Special edition, and be patient. It's going to be a multi-parter.
It's a multi-parter, but I think it's good. I think you guys will enjoy it. A little relatable.
If you like kind of history, mysteries, and crime podcasts, it's kind of teetering on that a little bit. It's sort of a little bit of a way from our standard operating procedure on the show, but it's historical. It's fun. It's a really interesting time period. We have a little bit of fun, so it's a good time. So anyway, I hope you guys have a good weekend, and make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And John, as you always say, stay curious. Thanks a lot, guys. See ya. And we say bye-bye.